Um, so let's bring it back, because I didn't say that. For the folks that I did not meet, my name is Robert Lee Newman III. I'm a Harlem-based visual artist, producer, and curator. And as of April 2024, I am the lead curator and director of Art for Walls Gallery here at Home of Harlem.
Oh, nice.
So, what you all are experiencing now is a part of this new regime, this new way of thinking about art. We've been doing a lot of things here in Harlem for a long time that have obviously had a cultural impact on the world. And as a curator, part of my job is this cultural appreciation, preservation, and the curator, the part that most people get, the selection, so the proliferation of stories. Right? I get to almost go out and just, like from a propaganda standpoint, put out stories and messages with intent so that other people can come back and understand, or at least be inspired in a way to move in more cohesion with the community that I'm aligned with, right? So when I think curator, that's what I think. Today's program is called Controlling the Narrative. And with this new curation model, what we're trying to do is really bring the art into a three-dimensional space. Everybody understands that art is everything and all around us, but it's hard for us to get the full, it's very hard for us to understand that full $100,000, million, whatever that price ticket is for the painting, when we're in the gallery and just seeing it flat on the wall, until we get to have the conversations with the artists, with the people, with the community, and it becomes a full immersive experience. And you see what people are doing, what they care about, who they're connected with, and the things that we're hoping to plant seeds and grow fruit for our communities for like generations to come. So controlling the narrative is super exciting for me because we're in a whole new era. And I thought it was very funny and topical because we've been watching this like new hip hop beat, right? Drake and Kendrick and everybody else in the world, 50 and Diddy and the wild stuff. And y'all will hear more about that most likely, I think, on the next panel. But I think the question that's been in everybody's mind is like, okay, the story. You keep seeing how these artists are either spinning the story to make it more advantageous to them, spinning the story to make it look weirder for the other person. We're in this 22nd century type technology where we didn't even know if the people were even telling their own stories, where it was just technologies and ghostwriters and all of that. And we're just talking about music. So I thought it was super important for us to come back, especially as a gallery and an arts institution, to talk about, again, what a story is, what it means for us to control the narrative. And we're starting off with Professor Earl Caldwell II. Earl, I'll give him a short intro and let him talk more about himself, but this is a mentor, a friend, a brother, a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and just to say he's one of my pro-fights. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
like, the first and the finest is definitely in here. And if you anything else, we appreciate y'all too. You know, y'all all family. You know, nephews and kids. And
It's not the first one.
you know what I mean? Everything had to start somewhere, just in case y'all's wondering. But a phenomenal brother, and what he's been doing in terms of starting, right? He's been starting a conversation in Chicago and globally around name, image, and likeness, around intersectionality in business, around what we're really doing now, right? Not just the traditional education of, what is it? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Earl Caldwell is the founder of the Different STEM Conference, Sports, Technology, Entertainment, and Media. And within that conference, one of the main and like kind of sexiest parts, which is what I want to dig into for this, is the name, image, and likeness competition. I feel like the name says it all, but I will let the lawyer explain it for the room. But with the recent changes in the law, the sports entertainment industry has been really kind of upended in terms of who can participate, how they participate, and I'll let my good brother talk about how that somehow looks like us getting either a bigger opportunity or sometimes getting left out of the conversation. But that's my spiel. That's why we're here. I'm glad y'all can make it. And without further ado, we're gonna jump right in, and I'll give it to Earl. Introduce himself, and then I'll throw some questions your way.
All right, well, thank you, and good seeing everybody. And since it's intimate, my thing is let's have a conversation. Let's talk about whatever it is we're going to talk about. Let the conversation flow. While Robert did talk about, and thank you for the introduction, good brother, NIL, name, image, and likeness. The reason it's hot and sexy is because student athletes are now able to get paid off of their name, image, and likeness, promotion and endorsements. Now, we know promotions and endorsements, that's been going on for centuries. That's not nothing new. You know, you got geckos getting paid, animals getting paid, musicians, artists, things getting paid. That's been going on. But what's new as of July 2021, 2021, is that now student athletes can get paid. Now, when we talk about student athletes, we're not talking about the Olympic sports. We're not talking about polo. We're not talking about swimming. We're not talking about gymnastics. We're talking about football and basketball. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about football, who's playing football? The percentage of the people who are playing football look like whom? All right. And then basketball. Those are what's called the revenue sports. Mm-hmm. And those are the sports that ESPN, ABC, ESPN, Disney, Mickey, and all of that, Fox. The network Fox are paying the NCAA, the conferences, SEC, ACC, Big Ten, trickle down to the coaches, are paying to watch those predominantly men that look like us, and everybody else is getting paid. Mm-hmm. In July of 2021, now the student athletes can get paid, and so that's why it's all hot and sexy. And that's why.
Can I get some context to that?
Mm-hmm.
I was in Ghana with a good brother of Omega Psi Phi, who had done football his entire life and now is working in the media field. It was giving me context for how big the revenue sports were, right? Especially football. He sat down and said, out of the top 100 programs that happen throughout the American, whoever, does the statistics for the most watched shows, he said out of the top 100, 89% of them are football games. 89 for the entire year. And I mean, that's American Idol, that's Game of Thrones, that's the Oscars, that's BET, that's any and everything that you could think of. 89 of those are Big Red, like OSU versus
Clemson.
You know what I mean?
Michigan, Ohio State, Texas A&M.
Okay, so keep going.
Yes,
keep going.
exactly. Exactly. Yes, sir.
I want to say something before I run out. I'm apologizing. One, football, college and pro, is the biggest verbally non-communicative item in the world besides sex, food, and medicine. Mm. You can go to any country, they eat Africa, all over the world. If you just pull a football helmet out, gloves, right away the government's promoted, because our government's paid them to promote it. Mm-hmm. Two, you don't, those NIL deals, I played college basketball. I'm going to get old enough, but you get, now that parents are starting to be more educated, they're realizing that their kids are a little more buoyant in where the money goes. Slowly, bits and pieces. But just like in hip hop, when the parents weren't involved in who the lawyer was or what the situation, you hear the robbery after the fact, right? Mm. But as you get more parents and grandparents involved, the lawyers get better, because most lawyers are going to side with the compliment of the company, just like record labels. They're not going to tell you this is a bad publishing deal, because no lawyer gets paid until they get a signature. No matter how great the lawyer is, until 2 signatures are passed, they don't get paid. That's why you never hear somebody disparage a lawyer until after the deal. because John Hancock has to be paid. Once we team up a little more, and I don't want to get into it, but yeah, if you're really good, you're from New York City, and you're a point guard, you do get paid a little bit, under the table.
What's your name, brother?
Derek.
Daryl or Derek?
Derek. Yeah.
Well, right. So you're absolutely correct about that. That's part of why the whole NIL conversation has to happen. Part of, for me as an educator, is to make sure, because the people making the money are looking like us, and the people who are eventually going to get raped and pillaged will be us. Right. We're generating the money,
people
but
making the money.
Right. And so that's part of why the conversation is important, that even though from the NIL perspective, but that translates to artists, because you all have this thing in the legal field we call, and this sister's a lawyer too, who's going to find her way into sports and entertainment, so you all want to make sure that you connect with her, the intellectual property, IP. You all have all that. And this is the same type of thing that we're talking about. So while we're talking about it through the lens of student athletes, because that's hot and sexy right now, all of you all have IP that will require a contract, some agreement to say what you have to do to get paid. It's the same type of thing. So while we're having this conversation about student athletes NIL at the moment, it's still applicable to whatever you're doing artistically and even through the media, because you want somebody to pay for your magic. Well, there's going to have to be some agreement, what the services are, how many pictures you're going to take, how that translates. So it's all related. And so with NIL though, as you see right now, as we speak, there's a big fight going on how the money is being divvied up. And who's in the conversation?
I'm trying to be, I gotta go.
Okay.
Last thing is too, they only gave us the NIL because they don't want to share the TV money.
Oh yes, but that's coming.
They can't stop that.
Right, but it's coming.
But if more parents and grandparents start saying, well, I have my own lawyer, you're going to see the numbers go through the roof, because then you'll be exposed to what they are. I want to thank everybody. I said I wasn't coming, but I'm glad I did. I'm going to really talk about a film.
Okay.
Enjoy it.
Well, I look forward to connecting at some point.
Yeah, I'm
too,
going to call her because I want to talk to them about some event space stuff. And I'm going to hit Chuck and her. I like to get everybody's info.
Okay. We'll make
I
sure
got
it's
film
out
coming
there.
out too. Go give it up for the DJ. As soon as Chuck helps me find somebody to finish it. All the greatest DJs in the world I shot.
Well, come on, you know, in Chi-Town, they got some DJs too, brother.
I shot Terry. I shot Wade Williams. He was at Columbia. I shot Terry.
All right.
Terry. I got a bunch of the biggest house DJs in the film.
All right, nice. Well, I look
Chuck,
forward
got
to
your
it.
number?
Yes.
Good. Go ahead.
Well, you
We'll
all know
make sure you
him,
connect
so,
everybody
yeah,
up, okay?
Absolutely. Good meeting you, brother.
Thank
And
you,
so, this whole conversation about money, and so, but on one level, and I don't want to go there, but I just want to point it out, is that the one level of the truth of the matter is about our institutions of higher learning, colleges and universities, and the college presidents and the chancellors and the trustees. So the motto has been that the revenue sports, football and basketball, make the money, and that allows the Olympic sports, swimming, track and field, volleyball, softball, baseball, to get their equipment, to get their uniforms, to get financed. So, over the centuries, over the decades, the predominantly black men have been providing the financing for all of the college sports and university sports to occur. Right. And so,
you're saying the sports, but it doesn't go.
no, I'm talking about from athletics. I'm talking about from the athletics. I'm just talking about, I'm not talking about that's endowment. I'm not talking about endowments for the education. I'm talking about for sports. For volleyball to exist or to get paid for is because the football team has brought in millions of dollars that they then take and redistribute. Some would call that socialism, but in America don't want to talk about that. But it gets redistributed to the non-revenue sports so they get to compete. That's just what it is. So on one level, it seems to me at some point there should be some revision on the educational model on how they fund it, because they've just chosen to do that and they've been allowed to do it because nobody has forced them to change. Well, perhaps with all of this going on, well, they're certainly going to have to, because as we talked about, there are suits going on right now that will change the landscape for student athletes getting paid. So there's a lawsuit for getting back pay for name, image, and likeness. There's a lawsuit for getting revenue sharing and all of that. So all of this is coming to a head. So in the future, in the near term, college sports as we know it is going to be vastly different. And how that model is looking like. They're already talking about, okay, like in football or basketball, in terms of, okay, each team has X amount of money to pay for their players to field their team. And right now that number is between 20, 22 million, whatever it is. But as we sit and talk right now, the powers that be are talking about schools that opt in for this model, that they want to do this, that they're going to pay their student athletes in basketball, football, some between 20 and 22 million dollars. Radical difference than what was going on a couple of years ago. Now that still has nothing to do with NIL money, which is just because you got something going on, we're going to monetize that. Promote endorsements, promotion activities. That has nothing. That's just okay. Pay to play. That because your athletic talent is such, you're going to get some of this money that you're helping to generate through this $22 million per team revenue share for just that, which is not revenue sharing of the advertising. That's separate. Yeah. See, that a whole different conversation is just like in football and basketball. They have basketball-related revenue. Basketball-related revenue is ABC, TNT, give them billions of dollars to broadcast their games. The player union, the teams get that money, and a portion of it comes back to the players, 48%. And that's revenue sharing. That's coming, brothers and sisters. That's coming at the college level.
All the players.
All that still, who gets what and how they get it. But the concept of college players getting some of that Disney, Mickey Mouse money is on the table and it's going to be happening. What it looks like, we don't know, but I'm just telling you that's part of what's going on between lawsuits and conversation and that sort of thing. And so the broad level about just the education and informing the parents and the students and that sort of thing is important, but there's still inequities and that sort of thing about how the model has been working and what's it going to look like once they decide, because the folks who are deciding are not looking like primarily you and me. Yeah. But they're having that conversation. They're in the court representing big law firms, the conferences. Right now, the two conferences are the SEC and Big Ten. Mm-hmm. They formed their committee of two to decide how the money's going to get distributed, because they have the teams that generates the most money. And so they've already said, well, our model is we're going to get Big Ten and SEC, there's 100% of the revenue. So we're going to get 29% each. So that's 58%. Okay, they've said that's our model. And then the ACC, the Big 12, okay, you get 15%, you get 10%. The other schools, y'all can split the rest of the 10%. But that's what they're doing as we speak. They're having their conversation about how they're divvying up this money that the black students are creating for them to divvy up.
So let me, we got a few more minutes, so I wanted to ask two questions to maybe help transition us, and then give it to the floor again to maybe ask a few more things, because I know you gotta run soon. Where today, because you're giving us a lot of context around like the case study for it, what the biggest argument is, but where's the front line for NIL now? Is the argument still with the students, the entertainment companies, or is it the case now trying to, like you said, get it to I heard Derek mention the TV money, or going back and like clawing back almost, right, dare I say, reparations.
Right, so, right, the revenue sharing. So that, again, these class action suits that are going on, that are permeating.
Because they meant to share the revenue the whole time for the case.
You know they didn't. No, they didn't mean to share.
Everybody's doing it up and up.
Yeah, with intention and purpose. No, they didn't mean to share it. They did share it with the conferences, with the colleges and universities, and with the coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And if your friend, as a student athlete, bought you Mickey D's, your eligibility could be taken away. That's what it was.
Yep.
That's what was going on. But the revenue sharing is coming. So the court cases are going to inform us about what happens. And today, the NCAA has lost them. And so that's why they're...
I know this math very technical for maybe this room, but still, what is that court case? Because I'm understanding more about like litigation,
Well, right,
like
well,
the board versus Brown comes to
Right,
be.
right. So there are three cases.
Mhm.
There's House, Carter, and I forget the third one. In each one, so House is dealing with back pay. So you've worked for somebody, they didn't pay you, you're suing them to get your back pay. House is about student athletes getting back pay from 2021 when the law came into existence for their NIL rights. That's House.
Okay.
Carter, I think the other two, one's dealing with revenue sharing. Okay, well, the student athletes are generating, the reason you're getting ABC and ESPN and Fox to pay is because of them generating that, and so they need to share in that.
Yeah.
So that's one case, and then the third one is another one. So those three lawsuits that are independently working their way through court systems in California and one on the East Coast are lending itself to the current conversation about settlement. Settlement. But so if those cases don't settle, then they'll go to court and let the NCA try to say, well, okay, why should I not pay these back pay this once it is legal now? And so that's what's going on. So those legal cases are giving pressure for the NCAA to settle and all the parties to settle.
Okay. The last one that selfishly, and again, transitioning to the audience, the TV one that Derek mentioned really got me thinking about, okay, that's our media piece, right? And that's really where our artists, and we need a semester for you to come back and teach us about intellectual property. But at least for today's conversation, what have you, it was satisfying me. Have you seen any of this happening within the arts and entertainment world? What are those cases looking like? Because you find artists, for example, I'm a visual artist, we're in a gallery. As soon as I put my painting on Instagram, I didn't read those contracts, but I understand that Instagram owns it. And what does that look like in terms of what they're able to do in terms of advertising, how I'm able to protect myself? If you're a student, Derek gave a really good, and I think probably a lesson we can all take advice from it. He said community was one of the biggest things that is starting to change. When the parents got involved with the lawyers, as opposed to thinking that the law was good and that the processing of the law was good. Mm-hmm. But if you're an artist, what are some of the, I guess, tangible things that we kind of need to look out for NIL? And are there ways for not just artists, but anybody in a space that is tangential to it? What are some ways we can start thinking about taking care of or protecting ourselves in that?
Well, yeah, and so while NIL is a form of what we call in the legal area intellectual property, and so you're talking about your rights, mm-hmm. and you're talking about your ability to control.
As an artist, I'm talking about my actual civil rights. That's why this is very
well, right. But so, right. But in
my ability to be a person, right?
Well, right. But in that those rights have to do with right of publicity and privacy and that sort of thing. But they're yours. They're yours to control. Mm-hmm. And so when you create a thing, it's yours. Now legally we call it intellectual property, but this is your painting. It's yours. And so now you have your art. And that could be a poem, it could be a record, it could be a movie, it could be a photograph. It's yours. And so now, then the question becomes about, well, okay, how do you exploit that to make money off of it? And then who are the rights associated with it? Now, have you given the right for somebody to do it? Mm-hmm. And what rights did you give? And so you have that structure just from like a pure contract. You have a photograph, I wanna use it for advertising or something, and so I wanna strike a deal with you to license your photograph, license your art for a particular event or series of events to do a thing. And so then you do it. But of course, now we have AI, right? And so your photograph, somebody, there are companies that will take your photograph, give it to an AI, and then come out with different iterations of it. And so now, is that really your photograph, and do they have to pay you for that? And so now it gets into that legal question about who owns it, what's right, is it derivative work, is it original work, and you get that. And so, from the artistic vantage point, depending upon what the art is, what it is, and then how it's being used or the context will inform in terms of how you want to protect yourself. But the fundamental piece is, it's your art and you own it to start with. Now, of course, okay, was it a hire? Did somebody hire you to do it? So, does anybody have on Nike here? Is that Nike? Anybody have Nike? Mm-hmm. Okay, you have on that. It's Adidas, right? Right. So they paid somebody, perhaps. I know Nike did. They paid a woman to create the swoosh. They hired her to create it, and she got paid her money, and that's it. Now, Phil Knight went back after they blew up and gave her another check because of what it is, but they hired her to create it. So it's Nike's property because they hired her to do it. Mm-hmm. All right. Mm-hmm. But in the instance that as an artist, you've created something that's yours, right? And so now, how are you going to monetize that? Through engaging with other people. And that's where it gets into about your right to knowing what you're dealing with in terms of who you're dealing with. So are you giving it for a short period or a long period? Mm-hmm. Are you, what are you going to get paid specifically for? Now, even if it's something where it's not a work for hire, you've been commissioned or you're doing something in the media, well, how many times are you going to do it? See, one of the things that happens when you get into creating a TikTok or something or some ad is like, okay, well, the contract is written in a way that it doesn't specify how many times that you're going to do it, how many versions of it before the media company is satisfied. And if it's not written properly, you as the artist could be doing it for a year because they're not satisfied with it. You've done 20 versions of it, so you've outworked the contract, but because it's poorly structured, not in your benefit, now you're getting taken advantage of and you're losing money. So again, the part of it has to deal with your rights and making sure you're communicating that and articulating that so that you're protected, but what you say you're going to do, you're going to do it, you're going to get compensated for, and that there are not avenues where you can get exploited or not get the benefit of your talent because the agreement wasn't structured properly for you to get all of that.
What's like a keyword that like kind of summarizes all of that? There has to be like some sort of like subjects. What is it like? Employee?
Well,
freelance?
there's not so much a key word because there are many. Okay, so you have music. So there are attorneys that just do music. There's movies. And then movies is different than television because those are series. Okay, then you have artists, visual artists. You have theater. My brother was talking about theater. There's theatrical. So, and then all of those genres, there are different legal nomenclatures and terms and processes and best practices that come into play. And so I can't tell you one specific thing about all that other than, well, one is, as an artist, you really do want to talk to somebody who understands contracts to represent you.
An attorney.
Right. Right. So now and then some people have an agent who will try to cut a deal, but again, that's part of what we as attorneys, that's part of what we're trained for and we know. And what's important is communicating what you want from your attorney. So, because you hire them, they're there to represent you, to be a vociferous advocate for you. But if you don't communicate that to them, if they're not informed about what you want, we cannot represent that in interactions on your behalf.
This is, I gotta be mindful of time, so I know I said we got 2 more, but I'll take it back because I know you got no soon. Because everybody in the room is at different stages of their career or at different stages of their development journey for their business or wherever they are, right? We may not be able to talk to a Yale lawyer tomorrow or to go through all the nomenclature, right? Are there maybe a gut check, like maybe 1, 2, 3 things to do when looking at contracts or engaging in situations, maybe for anybody in media, IP, or is that, the reason why I ask is because we're getting into a world where agreements are so ubiquitous that very soon I think we're gonna reach a bubble to where we're gonna have to rewrite the legal system. There's no way I can read every contract and there's no way I can afford
Well,
to compete against major companies that have lawyers that can write 100-page documents. There are terms and conditions.
Right. Well, one of the things is, as we're talking about the business of show and arts. That's a cost of business in the sense that it's in your really long-term best interest to have a lawyer look at your shit. I'm just saying.
I mean,
and let me just tell you why. Because look, so and it doesn't matter. And again, whether you're from Harvard, whether you come from Brooklyn, the issue is you have to pass the bar, okay? And in order for you to practice in any state in this country, you have to pass the bar. And what that means is that you have passed that state's test that represents that you have the fundamental level of expertise to do that in the state. So the lawyer has minimum qualifications to do that. Now, what happens is, as I've been telling my students who are preparing for the bar now, after the bar, the day after the bar, those 2 days you take the bar, you know the most you're ever gonna know. I mean, really, because you know all these subjects that you don't need to know, because once you're done with that, you now get into your specialty of what you do, and all that other stuff is irrelevant until you need to know it. And so now,
the medical school
right? And so now you've now focused on what you're doing. And so if you deal with somebody, and there's always somebody in music, there's somebody for internet, there's somebody for intellectual property, for housing, for immigration, find an attorney in that space that communicates well with you, that you relate to, that you feel comfortable with, and then interact with them, because that's what you need. Look, I'm a lawyer, right? I'm a lawyer. So, and I teach a little bit in IP, but when I went to get my different STEM trademarked, which is now trademarked, I took my happy-go-lucky black ass to somebody who does it and paid him to deal with it. Could I deal with it? Yes, I'm a lawyer. I'm trained to do it. I know how to go to the patent and registration copyright office and do all that, but I don't have the deep level of expertise. And so I paid a lawyer to go get my shit. And I got my shit. And I'm a lawyer. So I'm just saying to you, brothers and sisters, when it comes to that legal issue, please see a lawyer.
Yeah.
Because that will help you in the long run.
Is it much? I'm sorry. Is this not question and answer time?
Yeah.
It is. We're just trying to.
I'm just wondering, because is it arrogant of me to think that I could exhaust myself in a full education of, say, contract writing or the same legal properties that any lawyer.
So what's your name?
Calvin. My name is Calvin Smith.
So Calvin, you could go on Google and you can read contracts and you get a sense. You can get all that. And you will have some level of understanding. I'm gonna go back. Howsomever, howsomever, let's go wait. Howsomever, if I'm dealing with you in a contract and I know that you're not a trained lawyer, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you. That's just, and so let me take it another way. Let me give you an example. I think we all may have been familiar with this group, Earth, Wind and Fire. Okay. And you remember that song that they had with Emotions, Best of My Love? Right. So they were the daughters of a minister, right? So, yeah. Okay. So that minister negotiated with Earth, Wind and Fire on that song, right? Now, Maurice White, leader of Earth, Wind and Fire, all that, he took advantage of them. Because why? Because the right reverend, who wasn't a lawyer, negotiated his contract for his daughters. And so, The Best of My Love was on Earth, Wind and Fire's album, where they got the money. It's a little different now, but back then, that whatever the distribution, the $1, $1.50, whatever it was, went to Earth, Wind and Fire because it was on their record, not on the Emotions record that they came out with, and whatever royalty they got from it, because I don't think they wrote it, they just sang on it, so they just got paid to sing on it as opposed to a more integral part. And part of that is because their daddy negotiated their contract.
Yeah.
So again, could you negotiate it? You absolutely can, but all I'm telling you, my brother, is that if you're negotiating against an attorney, you're gonna get got.
Yeah.
Generally, I'm just generally.
As an attorney, can I just piggyback off of that? There's so many nuances in contracts that only an attorney would see it or catch it. Where if you Google it, and you may understand what Google is showing you, but when you actually look at a real contract, no matter what type of contract it is, there's so many different nuances that you probably won't even understand what it means, because they're using terms that only attorneys would understand. And even if it's in layman terms, it's worded in a way that really only an attorney would understand it. So the best advice I can give, and I give to my own clients, is that you have to, one, invest in yourself. So I know as Black people, we talk about how we don't have enough money for this, but we do have enough money for it. We just don't know how to prioritize what we need to do in order to get to where we want to go. And that's one of our biggest downfalls, because I'm dealing with an organization right now who should be a multi-million-dollar company or organization, but they don't want to understand or truly sit down and invest in the time to make sure they're asking for what they deserve. So they're taking crumbs like we do. We've been doing for the past 400 years. We just take crumbs, and it's nobody's fault but ours. But when you have attorneys who look like you, who know what they're doing, whether you want to believe it or not, because some of us are trained to not believe that, I could use this Black attorney, I'd rather go to Yale or Harvard. And I beat out some Yale and Harvard attorneys myself, so it's not just because you went to this prestigious law school that you actually know what you're doing. And especially when it comes to our own people, we can relate to each other more than anyone else. So if I'm telling you what you should do...
You mind if I jump in real quick?
Okay.
Because we do have one more discussion too. So we ain't got to have all the questions solved right here, right now, at this exact moment. I would like to transition because I got to get my brother Earl back to Chicago. Okay? So, last question. I will make sure all the information gets sent out and that he gives out his information, because my last question is, where can we find you? How do we follow you? How can we keep up with you? How can people reach out if they have additional questions?
Yes, well, most of you all, I've gotten your information so I can follow up with you, but Robert will give you my email, give him my Loyola email and my number for those who don't have it. For those who have it, I will, I'll send you the information. And just call me anytime, just reach out, I'm available, because part of it is that you all need the information, and that's important.
I don't think I have Robert's number.
Okay, so what we'll do is, I appreciate y'all. Like I said, we're not in it. I just need to transition. I got the little produce hat on too, so. Brother Earl, I appreciate you for sharing some time with us. I know there was supposed to be more, because I can see it in y'all faces and y'all eyes, and that's why we call it a crash course. We just need to get it back to where we are today. What's going on, what's happening, like, and why this is such a big and dynamic or even important conversation to have at all. Hopefully this is a real moment where y'all follow up, because I've had the individual conversations where people are trying to create bigger, better, more intricate businesses, and at least from my point of view, I'll answer the question again. It's not arrogant at all. It's about how much time you're okay with investing in it. If you're starting a gallery, you may not have another 100 hours to dedicate to becoming an expert in contract. And that's sometimes that for me, that's the battle. Trying to pick where is commander versus community. There are a lot of things that I have to say to my soul. This is a commander moment, and I wish I could call somebody else, but this is something I gotta learn and gotta do.
Can you explain
Oh
that a
Lord,
little deeper?
commander meaning I'm on top. This is something that I have to learn, and I gotta like personally go through all the steps, get the names, get the tactics. The community part though, when I need a lawyer, or I love that you said the expert piece, because I don't give a damn how sick I am. I'm not going to grandma if my leg is cut off. She know healing. She ain't no doctor. And we get that intuitively. If I have a cough, I'm gonna get some home remedies. If I have a 3-month ailment, I'm gonna go to every expert that there is to figure out what tools they have to go through all the stuff. And that's where I bring up that balance of like community versus community. Is this something that I need to personally be invested in driving, or is this a time where somebody else can come in and share their knowledge? So I appreciate you for sharing your knowledge with us. Again, if y'all didn't get information, easy and bring that out. Yeah. But I'll share the information.
Yeah, I'll have time until it comes, but